What's up? Welcome back now down to Dave here in our podcast. What's going on in pop culture right now? 5 key things to discuss. It's getting busy on the music front. Tyler, the Creator, and Halsey both dropping their first album since 2021. And on the movie front, we have Venom, The Last Dance, Conclave, and Anora. Plenty to discuss, so make sure you subscribe. YouTube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod. See links below. Get the best of 2024 Spotify playlist linked below. Let me know it's good, and let's get into it. What's up, welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Venom, The Last Dance, directed by Kelly Marcel. Venom 3 is here, the third and almost assuredly final film in the Tom Hardy-led Venom superhero franchise. Kelly Marcel, previously a screenwriter on the franchise, taking over the director helm. The story also has Tom Hardy's contributions, of course. And yeah, I think Venom The Last Dance is pretty clearly beginning the end of the Sony superhero, era as we know it. Lest we forget Madam Web release to nothing good earlier this year, and Kraven the Hunter is coming out in December, which I hope would be good, but it's hard to have much confidence in. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious, especially once you watch Venom 3, that the Venom movies are no more. And yeah, thankfully, whether you're a fan of them or not, I think it's good that Tom Hardy can move on and do more interesting and, elevating work up to his talent. For what Venom The Last Dance is, it's a good time sometimes. I do enjoy some of the body humor between Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock and Venom. The problem is that humor was way better and more effective in the first Venom. Venom The Last Dance has the thinnest of supporting characters, a doomsday save the world plot that feels completely out of place with the comic sensibilities this franchise has had. Venom 3 does a really bad job of building up the tension for its core conflict. It just kind of starts rolling into the conflict until the movie ends. At times, Tom Hardy is sleepwalking through this role. At other times, I do enjoy the humorous take he puts on his performance, but it's pretty clear that Sony is out of ideas with where to take the Venom character, a character that is already pretty thin in its source material. The fact that they were able to gross close to $2 billion through these 3 movies should only be considered a win, but I think it's time to move on. Not that it's really worth belaboring what Venom 3 is about, but you just think about the other supporting characters, right? You have Juno Temples, Dr. Teddy Payne, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Rex Strickland. I mean, they're really thin characters, one motivation, nothing to them. I thought they were going to make Rex Strickland into like an antagonist. I thought maybe he would like latch on with one of the symbiotes and he would have like a more like authoritarian like view on things, because they definitely presented him as a guy with a bit of an edge. But they don't take it. They keep him as a good guy. Rhys Ifans is, I guess, amusing in parts as this kind of hippie alien enthusiast guy, really just kind of doing his brand of performance from Notting Hill. Andy Serkis does the mocap for Null, one of the chief, villains of, Venom and Carnage and the symbiote world in the Spider-Man series. And yeah, Null has no standing in this movie at all. He's this like existential CGI threat that, he's sending his animal monsters to hunt the symbiotes and get the MacGuffin that's inside, our Venom. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't effectively land at all in this movie, and it's setting up a movie that's never going to be made, one of the cardinal sins that bad superhero movies make. There's really just not a lot to be excited about with it. All that being said, I did enjoy moments of the movie just because, again, I do laugh at the dumb humor that populates a lot of the Venom dynamic with Eddie. And I will point back again to Venom 1. I thought the lobster restaurant scene, that was like the apex of humor in this franchise. And I think ever since then, it's, has been diminishing returns, to say the least. But I believe I liked Venom The Last Dance purely on an entertainment level more than Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, which I thought was just a complete slog the entire time. Venom The Last Dance, to be clear, is also a bit of a slog. It's just more of a fun slog, I guess you could say. So yeah, Kraven the Hunter coming out mid-December, kind of an ambitious release date. I mean, it's hard to expect much box office from that, considering Then The Last Dance opened soft, opened below the original opening weekend projections. It's going to be the lowest grossing Venom movie of the three. Madam Web obviously crashed and burned. Aquaman 2 on DC side didn't live up to Aquaman 1's performance. We're really seeing the trend down of a lot of superhero films. Shazam 2, another example. Like, the good ones can still perform and perform really, really highly. Of course, like a Deadpool and Wolverine, something that had a lot of audience interest. But not really sure exactly how could it happen, because Venom had been broadly popular this entire time, and it's not like we've had a massive quality dip in these movies. They were critically panned for the most part the entire time, but it just feels like we're in a bit of a different market when it comes to these movies. Especially, I think the Sony superhero franchise is probably pretty damaged. I don't think Madam Web helped Venom: The Last Dance, that's for sure. So we'll see about Craven, but I mean, honestly, all eyes with Sony are on the next Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, which we officially know is going to be released in 2026 and begin shooting next year. Apart from that, which of course is a core focus for them, is anything else actually going to come out? There's been plenty of various things in development. And of course, I'm talking about live action. We know more Spider-Verse is on the way, but we might be at a bit of a crossroads. We'll find out. But yeah, let me know. What'd you think of Venom: The Last Dance? Did you like it more than Venom 2 like me? Did you like it less? Either way, let me know. And for more movie reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. What's up, Wilmac Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Conclave, the new mystery thriller film from German director Edward Berger in his follow-up to All Quiet on the Western Front a few years ago. This film debuted at Telluride earlier this year and is now out in wide release from Focus Features, of course starring Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow, and Isabella Rossellini. Conclave has been hotly tapped as a Oscar contender, a movie perhaps in the mix for certainly a Best Picture nomination, if not also acting nominations and other awards. Adapted from the 2016 Robert Harris novel of the same name, Conclave tells the story of a fictional papal conclave following the passing of a pope in the election of a new one and all the political machinations and cat and mouse that follows. Conclave is incredibly entertaining. This thriller film is very well done, excellent production design, finely crafted mystery. It's just a blast to watch and spend time with. In general, the concept of a papal conclave and the mystery and politicking behind the scenes is very fascinating and very cinematic as a result. The film is plotted very well, does an excellent job of expounding on its ensemble characters as you get to know more about them. That being said, I don't think Conclave is an upper echelon of films this year. I think it's just a peg below, because despite its vast entertainment that it provides, it has a bit too neat of an ending for my liking, despite a really effective 11th hour twist. I would have liked just a little bit more to the conclusion of this film, and I'd be very curious what it's like to revisit Conclave once you know the twist, once you know the beats of the plot. Ralph Fiennes plays Cardinal Lawrence, who is tasked with, overseeing and managing the conclave, and he's our lead POV. His ally in the liberal wing of the Vatican is Stanley Tucci, and then they're at odds with a more traditional conservative figure, Cardinal played by John Lithgow, and also a really arch-conservative Italian traditionalist, Cardinal Tedesco, played by Italian actor Sergio Castellitto. And then Isabella Rossellini plays the head of the Vatican nuns, Sister Agnes. All these performances are good, and the characters are, I think, well colored in for what they represent in the story. But I don't think any of these are necessarily best actor, best supporting actor, worthy performances. They're good performances. Could they be nominated? Sure, but none of these necessarily knock me off my feet or anything like that. I think that's kind of what I took away from Conclave, a movie that I really enjoyed, but I just don't think there's quite enough substance to it to hold it up to the degree that we're going to hold up some other movies this year. And I don't think that's a bad thing by any means. I'm pretty much a sucker for anything in this general sphere. I'm a big fan of the Dan Brown movies, despite their flaws, Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons. Obviously those movies are a lot flashier and certainly a lot more extravagant and suspend disbelief. And Conclave definitely has some ridiculous moments to it, but it's also just, again, a pretty rollicking good time. I think the script is, again, quite tight. I did think the final twist, which I won't spoil, I did think the final twist was pretty thought-provoking and interesting. I almost would have loved it if it happened a little bit sooner, just so we could have spent a bit more time with it, but it's done pretty well. That being said, before that, the lead up to when we get the final vote and we figure out who gets elected as the new pope, it's really predictable. You know exactly where the beat's going to go because you kind of have these dueling speeches before it. You have the good side and the bad side. Like, it's a bit overt, and I think the movie to that point had a lot more nuance than it does at the end. But again, it's a good time. It's fun to be with. So I can't really knock it too much. There's a moment where Cardinal Lawrence, where he finds his character, finds like a secret stash of documents in the late Pope's quarters. I would have loved more of that stuff. Again, let's get a little Dan Brownie. Like, that would have been fun. It's just unrealistic, but enjoyable nonetheless. So yeah, shout out Conclave. I mean, right now it's in my top 10 movies of the year. Will it stay there? I'm not necessarily sure. I like the movie for what it is. I think it's a really good thriller in a world where we don't get quite as many of these like crowd-pleasing thrillers anymore. So it's a movie that I wish would be more successful at the box office, and it looks like it's going to end up being, opening to under 10 million this past weekend. So we'll see how it legs out. We'll see how the awards season treats this film. But yeah, I enjoyed Conclave. I would recommend it. Let me know what you think about the movie. What'd you like most about it? And for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, Mac Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Anora, the new romantic comedy drama film from Sean Baker, out in limited release from Neon after premiering earlier this year at Cannes, where it won the Palme d'Or, becoming the first American film to win said honor since The Tree of Life back in 2011. Anora stars Mikey Madison as the titular Anora, who is a sex worker who ends up marrying the son of a Russian oligarch who is spending time in America. And then hijinks ensue once the rest of the Russian's family learns about what has taken place and vows to get the marriage annulled. Anora is absolutely superb. This is one of the darkest and funniest movies I've seen this year. I think it's so well done in terms of bringing you some of the best humor, best laugh lines of the year. My theater was absolutely dying at moments, but also leaves you with some challenging themes in terms of what it means to have wealth in the world. Mikey Madison is transcendent as Anora, honestly, and she's doing it all. Like, she's making a clap as a stripper. She is giving you tons of humor. She's giving you despair. She's showing all sides of herself in this role. The central premise of a stripper marrying the son of a Russian oligarch and then the Russian's family trying to annul the marriage, it's a great elevator pitch, and it's done to perfection. The middle half of the movie, where the most of the humor takes place, is excellent. That middle section also lends itself to being a great New York movie as we travel a lot of ground. Anora is the biggest movie yet from Sean Baker. You can certainly see the budget on the screen. He obviously, coming from indie film, the previous movies, Tangerine, The Florida Project, most recently Red Rocket, he has gotten more and more acceptance and eyeballs on his films and getting some awards recognition, but nothing super big. Anora has a good chance to finally break through for him and be a Best Picture nominee for the first time. Thematically, plot-wise, the movie can certainly be compared to Pretty Woman, but I really enjoyed kind of the multitudes that Anora contains within itself. The early scenes at the strip club, I think, are done very well. There's nothing stylized about it. It feels pretty real, pretty realistic. Once Anora links up with Vanya, the wealthy son of the Russian oligarch, played by Russian actor Mark Eidelstein, the movie really takes off, and they hang out a few times, quote unquote, and then he decides to have her hang out with him for a whole week, and then eventually they get married in Vegas. And it's like the movie, I think, really ratcheting up. And the early stuff, it's quite fun and, frivolous and party scenes and stuff. And then the marriage happens. And once Vanya's family and the people, his associates in the family and employees of the family start arriving at where they've been shacking up in like Queens or wherever to get this shit resolved, there's some terrifying moments. There's moments when you fear for Anora's safety. There's some incredible physical comedy throughout the movie. And then eventually the things really flip in terms of what you're rooting for Anora to accomplish. And she comes across as a character with, unsurprisingly, a lot of street smarts, but also you have a lot of compassion for where that character is coming from in terms of what they're trying to achieve. And again, Mikey Madison sells this whole movie because she has to do a lot as her character is in control, fighting to maintain control, being vulnerable, breaking down, all of that. Anora's relationship with, or, relationship in quotes, with one of the henchmen that showed up to get shit taken care of on the Russian side, Igor, played by Yuri Borisov. I think it's pretty interesting and how that is seeded throughout the movie. Karen Karagulian plays Toros, this Orthodox priest who is Vanya's godfather and is trying to take care of stuff. Tour de force comedic performance in this movie. Like, he gets so much laughs. Like, he's so good. And he also really drives a lot of the movement once things change, namely Vanya abandoning Anora when push comes to shove and he realizes his family's coming to drop the hammer and get shit taken care of. I would highly recommend Anora. I think it's one of the best movies of the year. Whether it's going to contend for Best Picture, I'm not entirely sure just yet. Ultimately, it is a movie with a stripper at the center of it. We are in one of the most wide open Best Picture races in recent memory, so it's hard to rule anything out. I would certainly be rooting for this movie because I think it really is kind of the whole package in that regard, and has a lot of great craft as well. I think the movie looks amazing. Unsurprisingly, Sean Baker, incredibly talented as the writer. He edits his own movies as well. So I really hope he gets a lot of recognition for his work. And Mikey Madison, it's a ingenue performance that in the past has often been rewarded, but she's going up against a lot of more well-established competition. So we'll see if she gets break through the Best Actress race, but I think she'd certainly be worthy. But let me know, what did you think of Anora? What did you like most about this movie? Let me know. And for more movie reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. What's up, Welcome Back Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Halsey's fifth album, The Great Impersonator. Halsey is back with her first album since the big sonic departure she gave us in 2021, the album produced by Nine Inch Nails, after all. And leading up to that album, and certainly in the time since, and in the rollout of The Great Impersonator, Halsey has, I think, really changed in terms of her public persona and how she carries herself as an artist. I mean, she's quite famously become a new mother in the past few years, and that has not necessarily been a smooth experience for her. She gets into that on this album. And also, most notably, she's publicly revealed that she suffers from some pretty serious and ongoing autoimmune complications in terms of her personal health, namely lupus. Unsurprisingly, that stark change in her life has really colored in the subject matter of The Great Impersonator. Halsey's fifth album, The Great Impersonator, once again represents a sonic shift for the pop star. This is some of the darkest and bleakest music she's ever met, but also pretty personal and introspective in the sense that Halsey is directly commenting on her own mortality because of her ongoing chronic health conditions. Largely pretty acoustic, pretty hand-played and understated. It's not the flashiest music that Halsey's ever made, obviously far from it. Often these arrangements are quite sparse, and I think you have to be really locked into Halsey's lyrical message, her journey as a person, especially if you're a fan for some time, to really lock into this album. In the lead up to this album, Halsey has likened a song on The Great Impersonator to various pop figures of the past, such as a Kate Bush or a Dolly Parton, a Cher, etc. I think it's cool to directly point to that many touchstones, but I didn't think it necessarily increase the album's overall stature to me. And for someone who's such a raw and passionate singer, I think the sparseness of the music largely holds this album back from being something you want to sink your teeth into. You're really just left with the bleakness of the lyrics, and I think you have to be pretty invested in that to want to stick with it. That's not to say there's not highlights on this album. Like the first single, Ego, had me pretty excited for the album because Ego is a, pop punk song in the vein of some of the coolest songs she's made recently, such as 3 a.m. or her feature on Machine Gun Kelly's Forget Me Too. Halsey has the energy and the spunk and the vocal chops to pull off, pop punk and then the revival it's having in the mainstream sense lately, a la Olivia Rodrigo. Like, she can do that. And I was looking forward to hearing that a bit more on this album. You really don't get it much apart from Ego. The song Lucky certainly stood out to me, perhaps unsurprisingly invoking both in title and interpolating the chorus of Britney Spears' iconic song Lucky. But I think Halsey does a really good job using that. I thought Darwinism was also pretty interesting. You had these like haunting keys in the beginning that immediately took me to a really specific place, namely Heathens by 21 Pilots. I did not expect to get that feeling, but like it was immediately brought to that, just like the faintest similarity of the melody in that brief moment in the song. There's other stuff though that I just had a hard time with, like Hometown is this like folk acoustic song. It really wasn't for me. Dog Years I thought was conceptually interesting, but just kind of meh as a song overall. A song like Only Girl, it's acoustic for the majority of it, and the kick drum eventually kicks in and gives the song some new life. The end is incredibly understated and unsurprisingly pretty morbid. I think more than anything for me, conceptually this album is actually just a bit thin musically for me. I mean, clearly the lyrics and the message in terms of Halsey, this is the album she had to make, and it's almost like a therapeutic exercise for her in a certain sense. That makes complete sense. But I think just musically, even she's pointing to all these various touchstones, but it just doesn't really come together for me enough, I think, due to its sparseness. And I contrast it to the last album, If I Can't Have Love, I Want Power. That felt like such a, thematically consistent piece. And I just don't think we have that this time around. And yeah, at this point, clearly Halsey has been grappling with her fame. On this album, she speaks about even if she can even trust some of her own friends. Like, she's certainly been going through it mentally, not to mention, again, physically with her health. So, really not sure what to expect of her moving forward. Of course, she's pretty certified as a pop star at this point. Look no further than the massive success of Without Me. But, from someone who had some pretty humble beginnings on Tumblr, and he was able to organically build that into a massive and devoted fan base, and then take that to actual mainstream pop success. It's a unexpected, new diversion where we went down a new road here. I just didn't see it coming. And again, Halsey didn't see all these health issues coming and the grappling with the, postpartum nature of her becoming a mother and all that, of course, goes without saying. But yeah, it's just an interesting place to be for an artist. So yeah, I think you have to be pretty invested in the Halsey journey, and also I think have to be a pretty big fan of this kind of sparser, lighter, often acoustic-driven music to, I think, latch onto this album in comparison to some of her past works. But we know, what did you think of Halsey's Great Impersonator? Did you like this album more than me, perhaps? What was your favorite song? Let me know. And for more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, Womack Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Tyler, the Creator's 7th album, Chromakopia. After Tyler said he wasn't releasing new music this year, of course, he pretty quickly began a rollout for this album after previously playing Coachella earlier this year. Did a listening event for this at the brand new Intuit Dome in Los Angeles, and intentionally did a Monday release drop. And this was not like a Kanye album got delayed, I finally got it out to everyone on Monday release. No, this was by design out on Monday, interestingly enough. And of course, no matter what Tyler does, especially musically, it's going to be incredibly worthwhile and get a ton of attention. Tyler boasts that he's the biggest LA rapper after Kendrick these days, and honestly, he's probably correct. Tyler has become such a massive force as a multi-talented, multi-hyphenate creator. And even when he's in between album cycles, between his, work in the fashion sphere with the golf brand and his association with other cultural figures like his idol Pharrell, or Gerard Carmichael with the viral bits from Gerard's show more recently, Tyler's always around. But when we finally get the music, it's going to be worth tuning in for, because Tyler always gives us something that is a fully formed piece of art, whether that's ultimately for good or bad. There's always a lot of intention with his work. Tyler, the Creator's 7th album, Chromakopia, is a impressive, wide-ranging, yet at times hard to grasp album. Some of Tyler's most personal and introspective lyrics are on this album. He's very self-aware at times. Sonically, the album is very scattershot. Often over the course of an entire song, there's just so many ideas coming in and they're being thrown at you fast and furious. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This is not new to the Tyler listening experience. Musically, this album reminds me of some of Tyler's earlier work, even if thematically the album is very much in line with where he's been post Flower Boy. If I had to boil this down, this is Tyler almost continuing the rapping structure that he did on Call Me If You Get Lost and really bringing it into the more rap rock, production sensibilities that he's developed more recently. There are certainly bangers on Chromakopia, but I don't know if any of these are high-end Tyler bangers. Of course, it's an incredibly high bar with the vast and varied discography that he has to this point. Nonetheless, Chromakopia is certainly a worthy work that kind of goes without saying with Tyler's intentionality, his artistry. It's certainly interesting, and there's a lot I liked about it, but there also were some songs I just found a bit hard to grasp. We can start with the first and only to this point single, Noid, which came out like just a week ago. Really noticeable guitar riff on that and the snares pick up, but this is a great example of one of the Chromakopia songs that really changes what it's got going on over the course of the track list. Overall, I like it though. I think it's a pretty fun song. Track 1, St. Chroma, featuring some Daniel Caesar vocals, has this chant, like clapping in the beginning, Tyler kicking us off with some like ASMR performance almost, and then a pretty, I think, sticky chorus. Track 2, Ra-Ta-Ta, that gets us right off into the banger sphere for sure. I mean, Tyler's just absolutely spitting on this, and I think one of my favorite lines on the album, but also one of the most viral, unsurprisingly. Me and Lionel Boyce in drama class, my boy can act now. It's really odd future, all them other dudes whacked out. The biggest out the city after Kenny, that's a fact now. Obviously shouting out Lionel Boyce, formerly L-Boy of Odd Future, now a Emmy-nominated actor on FX's The Bear, as we know. And then, kind of acknowledging Odd Future and his former crew and colleagues and how not all of them are as successful as Frank and Earl, and we'll leave it at that. And of course, the Kenny boast about Kendrick or Tyler being number 2 behind Kendrick in LA, which I think is pretty factual. Good bars. I like to hear it. Darling I, you have Tizo Touchdown singing, I think fits pretty well, mixing in with Tyler rapping. I like the line from Tyler about kind of being unable to settle down and find the right person and being lonely with his Grammys. Perhaps the best song on the whole album from a writing perspective has to be Hey Jane. This is about a unplanned pregnancy sometime in Tyler's past. We don't actually know if this is a true story, but it's pretty specific in the way the story is told that I'm inclined to think it is true in some fashion. And what I really like about the song, like the first verse, Tyler has, I think, a pretty progressive and nice way of viewing what's going on in terms of not being the one that truly dictate the ultimate decision with what should happen in this situation. The line about not really doing much work and then getting to put your last name on the kid, I think kind of brings that home. But then verse 2, it's Tyler rapping from the first person perspective of the woman who is newly pregnant. I just like really getting that extra perspective. I think it's a really well done song. Is it a song I necessarily would revisit all that much? Not necessarily. And I think that's perhaps my like soft quote unquote issue with some aspects of Chromakopia, is like I can appreciate what's going on here even if I'm not necessarily that interested in revisiting it. I like the drums on I Killed You a lot, certainly in the banger camp there. Judge Judy, kind of a sex jam, fun tempo. The I Don't Judge Judy wordplay, very amusing. I don't think I've ever heard that before. It sounds obvious, but nonetheless, it worked for me. To this point in the track list, the guests have been, background, like clearly in support. Daniel Caesar, Tizo Touchdown. When the album was first released, the features were not listed in streaming platforms, so they kind of sneak up on you. But when you listen to Sticky, which is of course a banger, it's incredibly clear that you got some guests on here. Glorilla popping up, followed by Sexy Red and Lil Wayne. When I first heard Glow on Sticky, I kind of jumped out of my seat. I was like, let's go. Short and sweet, all of them, but it's really fun. Of course, the Wayne connection with Tyler dates way back to Smuckers on Cherry Bomb. After all, I quite enjoyed Thought I Was Dead featuring Schoolboy. I think Balloon featuring Doechii, also a nice highlight. Doechii's, again, short but sweet appearance. Like Him, I quite enjoyed the guitar solo on that. And yeah, I guess like if anything, like I don't think the album necessarily like wraps up in any like grand fashion per se, and there's not like some immediate takeaways out of it the way of course Flower Boy kind of dropped like a bomb when that first came out after all. But again, Tyler really intentional. There's so many switch ups and instrumentation changes, not to mention, different vocal inflections and Tyler switching up his rap delivery and doing his singing, bringing in guests. Like there's so much going on with the album that it's hard for me to be too critical, even if ultimately I don't think I was really bowled over by the album. But again, like it speaks to the strength of his discography. I mean, the Flower Boy Level Up, followed immediately by Igor and Call Me If You Get Lost. Like his last 3 albums are his best 3 albums. Eventually that was not going to continue to be the case. I do think Chromakopia is below the previous 3. But again, that's not a bad thing. Let me know, what did you think of Tyler the Creator's 7th album, Chromakopia? Did you like it more than me? What was your favorite song? For more music reviews, more rap reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. All right, that's going to do the pod this week. Next week, a lot of big stuff once again. New music from Baby Monster and Tomorrow Together, and then a ton of movies to get into. The movie times are alive right now for us. Robert Zemeckis, Robin Wright, and Tom Hanks' Forrest Gump reunion with Here. We'll see how that goes. Not too positive. More promising, Juror Number 2, Clint Eastwood, perhaps his final film. And then also, I'm very lucky going to be able to see 2 films early that aren't going to really release in limited fashion until December. That would be Nickel Boys and The Brutalist, 2 films that will almost assuredly be heavily featured in the Oscar race this year. So make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod, see links below. Get the best of 2024 Spotify playlist linked below. Let me know it's good, and I'll see you next week.